classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one makes countries laugh to your face, fight, and die. Cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide. Sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care. See the shit, force a bear, fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries, lie to your face, fight, and die, cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On at UCY.TV, best little network on the web. And this night show on Revolution Radio and the next day on UCY is killing me, man. But we'll drag it out for a while longer. Anyways, today is November 1, 2015. And some of you may have remembered to set your clocks back, and some of you might not have. In our place here, my computer says 12:02, and the clock in the kitchen says 1:02. So we'll get that sorted out, or we won't. Because if we wait 6 months, it'll be the right time in the kitchen again. I see out in BC somebody's come up with a petition to not turn the clocks back. And I said that a bit last night. We did that a couple of years. We just said, screw it. It gets too dark in the winter too quick. So we just left the clocks as they are, and we run our own time. And I've never worn a watch since, let's see, last watch I owned, I shot. And that was way back, probably when I was in my very early 20s, somewhere in there. I had a watch on my arm, and we're sitting out at my brother-in-law's cottage, and there's a shotgun out there. So I looked at the watch, and I don't like being tied to that thing. And so I just kind of threw it up in the air, called skeet shooting if you want, watch shooting. And that was the end of that watch, and I've never worn one since. People are too tied to the time, except when you got to do a show. You're supposed to be there on time, so we try to do that. But other than that, yeah, there's another guy in the chat doesn't wear a watch, and you know, they made up our calendars, they made up our time, and they've got us tied to it, and we keep running around on the wheel like a bunch of donkeys, and that's our life, I guess. But we're going to change all that. We're going to get our own lives back. We've been living the life that was constructed for us, and for most people, that ain't been working out that good. I was trying to. Me and my brother-in-law, we were at the grocery store a few nights back, and ran into another guy that he knew. I didn't know, but I guess this guy's working for somebody now. He used to be a contractor, and he just got fed up with it. And I'm hearing that more and more. That's why I got out. It used to be, if you wanted something done on the house, you would call me, I would come and do it, you would pay me, everybody's a happy camper. Now, the government, the quote government, has got you tied down so tight it's ridiculous, and they just keep sticking their hand deeper in your pocket. And so this gentleman, he finally realized that he's working all year for nothing. And he's hiring people and putting up with stuff and running around and doing estimates, and then the government keeps dumping all this paperwork on and turned him into a tax collector. And he just finally said enough is enough. And that's one of the things they're trying to do. They're trying to drive all the small businesses out, okay? So only these large companies who are hooked into the government and are basically government agents will be left. And you know, my ex-co-host John over in Orion, he was telling me in Toronto, and this couple 3 years ago, was telling me that some of the jobs down there, they track you. They put tracking devices on you, so they know exactly where you are. I know the snowplow drivers up here now; they're all running with trackers, so that they know exactly where they're plowing, when they're plowing. So it's all about surveillance. It's all about technology and I can't say that word, technocracy. And you mean nothing, okay? You mean nothing to these people, and we got to break those ties. Anyways, I mentioned last night about this book, and I put it back in the chat, and it took me a long time to figure out the police, and because it didn't seem to make any sense to me. I mean, I had the occasion where the CAO and the mayor of my town phoned the police. I mentioned this before, phoned the police. And the deal was that I'd been talking to the CAO the day before, and I was thinking about going up to the council meeting and having a say. And I just wanted to get something qualified, verified, and so I called the CAO and had a chat with him. Then I sent him an email with the same information we chatted about, and he was to get back to me 11 o'clock next day. So between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, a whole herd of police came wandering up my walkway, and he had actually called him and the mayor. It was agreed by the staff sergeant that the call came from the mayor, the CAO, and I would imagine it came from the CAO because he was the one I was talking to. Now, the CAOs, or your city administrator, they're all CAOs, are specifically trained in the implementation of Agenda 21. Now, I've been scrapping with these guys about this for years, and they want to keep a lid on it. They want to implement the UN agenda without the public knowing. So the police have been turned into community police to keep an eye on those who are bucking this plan. That would be me. And so I actually made the phone call to the police to tell them they needed to come here and basically not give me a hard time so much, but to try and get me irritated so that they could classify me as a threat, so they could ban me from coming to council meetings, speaking at council meetings, or speaking to the staff. And failed miserably because I don't get that upset with these guys. I know they're not the brightest bulbs in the world. I mean, I've had enough to do with them. They say, well, we're just doing our job. Well, okay, well, I know you're not real bright. So somebody tells you to do something, you just go do it without any thought process. And this really bugged me. You know, we'd been arrested before and thrown in jail for delivering. I was supposed to be at the utility, and when I went to give them the paper they wanted, we got basically SWAT teamed, and then thrown in jail, and then dragged through court for 14 months. And at the end of the 14 months, these charges were never even brought forward in an attempt to intimidate and force one to submit. This is too much trouble to keep beating against this stuff because they're just going to keep giving you a hard time. So after all of that happened, I started making phone calls, and I phoned the Premier's office, would be your governor's office if you're in the States, and had a chat with them trying to find out who it is that has a handle on these lunatics that are coming around bothering people. These lunatics are called the police force. Who the hell's got control of these guys? Well, the Premier's office says, not us. Well, you're the head of the show, and you don't have control over them, so you, the Premier, can't call the police in if they're screwing up and bothering people. Nope. So they told me I should phone the Ministry of Corrections and Safety, which the OPP, which are police here, are under. It'd be like the state police. And so after having a long chat with them, they didn't just come right out and say it. We had to go through a bunch of nonsense first about who has control over the police. And because it's under that ministry, you would think that the ministry can call the police in, but apparently not. And he told me I should call the police board. Well, I was at the police board, and the police board I know has no authority whatsoever to tell the police anything. The police board, the police come, they have a meeting, and if somebody has a problem, they discuss it or whatever, but they don't have any power. And so they give me a couple other agencies, which are basically gatekeeper complaint agencies, where you can put in a complaint, and they can look at the complaint, and they can send the complaint to the police, but it's up to the police whether or not they want to deal with it. So again, who has control over these police? And finally, after doing a bunch of research, it came to me knowing that nobody has power over the police except the police, that they are a legislated agency outside the reach of the government who created them. Well, that don't sound very good. So I actually phoned the commissioner's office, who is the head honcho of the police, but he's police as well. And after talking to those guys for a while, they agreed that the police police the police. Well, that could cause all kinds of problems. So I came across this book, excuse me, and it's good because it was written in 2007 or 2007. And it's called Police and Government Relations. Who's Calling the Shots? Now, this book basically has a whole pile of court stuff in it. It doesn't go into particular court cases too much. It's just about who's calling the shots. And what we find out is that the police are calling the shots. And we also find out in this book that no one has the authority to influence the police. This is critical, okay? And that the police, it's up to them, it's up to the police what they investigate. They decide what they're going to investigate, okay? So most of the police are running around handing out tickets, okay? Because you broke a policy or a rule or a regulation that was set up by the corporation known as your government. And it is definitely a corporation. Now, I usually use, in here in Canada, and how can you be in Canada? Because Canada is a piece of corporate paper. Just like the USA is. I live in the USA. I live in Canada. Well, you can't live in Canada, and you can't live in the USA. You can't live in any country that's called whatever it's titled, because all of them are corporations, and you can't live in a piece of paper. You can't do it. So you don't live in the USA, and you don't live in Canada. Okay? You live on land. And they corporatized that land, turned it into a corporation, of which they claim all land. So you can never own land where you live. Because according to the corporate structure, it ain't your land. It belongs to the corporation. Now, the police, it says in this book, and I want everybody to go and take a look at this. Take a wander through this. And I don't care what country you're in. It's all set up the same way. Go take a look at it. You know, and the more we get into this, the more video that hits the internet, the more stories you read about a policeman beating the living snot out of a woman or a man or a child. And you always hear, well, we don't have any comment yet, says the chief of police, or up here now they're calling them, they're inspectors here now in Canada. I don't know what happened to chief, but they're called inspectors now, but that's all through the internationalization of the police. For the big world corporation, and people are starting to scratch their heads like, what the hell's going on? I mean, the cop pulls somebody over, says, you know, I want to see your license, and the one in the vehicle wants to ask a couple of questions. Next thing you know, is hauled out, beat to a pulp, or shot and killed, or whatever. And people are going, what the hell's going on here? Well, they've got the run. I mean, they rule the roost. The police basically can do whatever the hell they want. And in the rare instance, a cop will get charged for something, but it's the police that charge the police. In other words, the police to police. So the only time a policeman gets charged is when there's so much outrage from the public that they have to basically sacrifice one of their guys to keep the lid on what the hell's actually going on. And the policemen ought to know that too. The police, if you're listening to this and you're police, and I wouldn't doubt if there's some police listening to this, if you're not in the chat, go and Google or whatever search engine you use. Just Google Ontario Provincial Police. It's, that was my search thing. And what I searched for was Ontario Provincial Police, its corporate direction, and that's what pulled this book up. And the book is called Police and Government Relations, Who's Calling the Shots? So if you're a policeman or a policewoman and you're listening to this show today, go and Google Police and Government Relations, Who's Calling the Shots? In fact, if you're a politician, go look this up, because you best read it. Now, the gist of this book is that the police, and the idea is that no one can influence the police. No one can tell the police what to investigate, because it's always at their discretion, their sole discretion. Now, there's stories in here of, where politicians or prime ministers or that have it looks like they influenced the police. So they can't do that, okay? And if someone tries to influence the police, they're supposed to say no. And basically, there's a couple of cases in here where police chiefs or commissioners have actually resigned because they cannot be influenced and had to step aside. So basically what it says is that the police, police to police, and there's references in here to where different judges or authorities have looked at this and said this is a police state under the it qualifies for a police state, because nobody can tell the police what to do. Only what's in the act, in the police act. And part of the police act, it creates the police outside the government or the corporation, which actually instituted the act and the police. But that way, you can look at this both ways, So, well, if they're allowed to influence the police, then we got all kinds of trouble. Well, okay, that's probably true, but there has to be a body somewhere, some kind of an independent body that has power over the police. There has to be, and there isn't, and that's the problem. There's no body out there that is independent that can call the police in. So we need a body, not a watchdog complaint department or a police board. We need an independent body that can say, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you screwed up. And you're out of here. Okay? If you they say, well, we're investigating. It looks by the video that the officers may have used excessive force, but we have to look into this and find out what happened before the video actually was shot and the circumstances surrounding. And, trust us, we will investigate this and get back to you. And in the meantime, the officers involved have been put on administrative duty with full pay and benefits until we do an internal investigation of our own people. Whoa. And you're going to get an honest investigation out of this? It's a freaking brotherhood. Okay? It's no different than a motorcycle gang. Okay? They cover each other's asses. But the thing is that the police cannot be influenced. Only the police can decide what they're going to investigate. Now, this gets really bad. We have all CAOs throughout the world instituting Agenda 21 behind the backs of the people. And Agenda 21 and everything else going on over the UN is designed to harm the people. It is designed to destroy the nation states. It is designed to curtail people's use of water, people's use of electricity or any other power source they're using. It's designed to indoctrinate the children in the schools. Okay, so it's all based on harm. It's an institution that is designed to harm people. Now, are the police investigating the United Nations, or are they investigating the CAOs? Are they investigating the local councils? Of course not. Who's paying the police? The local municipality is paying the police. That's who's contracted with the police. And what are the police doing? Are they going to investigate the crimes being committed by those who are paying their paychecks? I highly frickin' doubt it. So while they're supposed to be independent and they have a job to investigate crime, okay, this is multiculturalism is a conspiracy to commit genocide against the society that is presently there. That's a crime. What's being instituted through the local municipalities is being instituted without disclosure. That's a crime. That's fraud. But none of this is being investigated. So I find this book really, really interesting. I'm not going to go through too many patches. I'm not going to go through any patches on it. I'm just trying to entice you into taking a look at it so that you get a full understanding of what's going on with the police. They're an independent agency who police themselves, who have total discretion on what they investigate. But it also says only they can start an investigation, okay? And they can't be influenced by somebody else, which brings up, what happened here at the House when we have the CAO and, according to the staff sergeant, probably the mayor was involved in it, making a phone call to that local police station, not where they're supposed to call. Normally, when you call the police here in Ontario, it rings into a call center or a dispatch center, and you tell them where you are, and then they contact the appropriate police station, which responds to the call. But in my case, that was totally bypassed because the police, first of all, the call would be classed as a mischief call, which is against the law. You can't make false calls to the police. That's a crime. Yet the CAO did it, and they say the mayor's involved in it. So they bypassed the dispatch and went directly to the office of that particular branch of police that they pay. And then the police come here and are trying to have me labeled as a threat, which failed miserably. But they were all here. They agreed they were here under false pretenses. They agreed they got a call from the CAO, which they could not have responded to because the call was outside. The reason that they were told to come here was completely outside the jurisdiction of the OPP. Yet they came. So now that I have this book, and this is all documented stuff as to the rules and regulations of what the police can and can't do, or what a government agent, i.e. the CAO or the mayor or the minister of, or whatever, cannot influence the police. That's completely against the law. So I guess with the information we have now, I guess we're probably going to be forced to start a court action. Now, to start a court action becomes a problem as well, because it says in this book that the police, while outside the reach of anyone, is bound by the rule of law like everybody else. But then when you look up rule of law, it says it's an ambiguous term. It can mean whatever. So the rule of law does not have a proper definition to it. There's no exact definition of what a rule of law is. So that's the land of legal. Everything is ambiguous. So they can use it and turn it and not use it, or ignore it, or bring it in, or whatever, for their cause. But it says that the courts, the judges, are the ones who will determine whether or not the police have broken the law. But only the police, as far as I can see in this, have the authority to charge the police. So even if you get it to court, they're all working for the same outfit. Now, the courts are supposed to be outside, like the police, outside the reach of anybody. Okay, they're supposed to be independent, and they're supposed to be what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, they're outside of everybody else, and they're independent, and that's the word. They're supposed to be completely impartial. Well, how can they possibly be impartial? They all work for the same outfit. And they're all there specifically to protect the crown. That's their job, is to protect the crown. So the crown goes and makes up these stupid rules and regulations that actually are designed to harm people, and then the police are designated to go and give people tickets for these stupid rules and regulations, which actually were created to harm people in the first place, and to cause harm is against the law. But that's what the legal system is. It's ass backwards from law. Okay? Law is do no harm. Legal is do harm. That's the ticket. Okay? And if we were running on law, the legislatures wouldn't be passing all these stupid rules and regulations, which are corporate rules and regulations, given the color and force of law. So the police are the force, and they're independent, and they are the ones to instigate the investigation, but they have the discretion of what it is they're going to investigate. So they'll go and jump some kid on the street corner for a joint and rough him up or whatever, and then drag his ass into a holding cell or give him a ticket, which means he's got to come to court, which means that they give him a fine or jail time or whatever, and somehow that makes the community safe. Meanwhile, the higher you go up the ladder, the more harm's being done to the people. And that includes you policemen and women. But you're not investigating any of this stuff. Now, when I phoned up the police to tell them that there was an extortion going on me by the utility, forcing me to sign a piece of paper, and they refused disclosure, and then they turned around and threatened me to take the meter and then charged me $910 to get it back if I didn't do as I was told without disclosure. That's a clear case of extortion. Now, when I phoned the police, they blew it off as, oh, well, that's a civil matter. Well, no, actually, extortion's criminal, you twits. But they would not investigate it because, again, they have discretion as to what they're going to investigate. So the real crimes are not being investigated. Okay? The real crimes, the real criminals are those running the corporation called your country, but they're not being investigated for their crimes. And that's what the book is really about. Okay? And it nails it. It absolutely nails it. That we live, for all intents and purposes, under corporate rules and regulations, and the government is a corporation. The police are there, and the courts are there to protect the corporation and its main players, and the courts are there to protect them as well. So the people being dragged into the court are not the criminals. Okay, if a guy's standing on the street corner with a joint in his mouth, has he caused anybody harm? Of course not. Of course not. And law is about harm. Okay, but it broke their legal rules and regulations of the corporation, saying that you can't do that because, well, we said you can't do that. And you say, well, I'm not part of the corporation. Well, yeah, you are actually. You are part of the corporation because when they lied to your mama right after you were born and got her to register you, then you got tied to the corporation. And when you got tied to the corporation, you become liable for any rule and regulation that you break that was made by the corporation. But of course, you weren't registered. They took your name and made a financial instrument out of it and turned it into a corporate entity. And then they joined you. Okay? I remember all these guys running around with these free man thing and that, talking about joinder and that. Well, they're not trying to make joinder. You already joined, okay? You know? Well, they're trying to make joinder with you. No, you've already been joined. The day your mother signed that piece of paper which registered you, which was a complete fraud and a deception, because what they did, they said by signing this, your child will receive benefits. The child benefits in that. And if you don't sign this, your child won't be able to go to a school or get medical care or any of these things. Oh my God, well, I don't want that to happen to my child. Where do I sign? They didn't tell your mom that what she was signing created another entity of which you got tied to. And the best case of that is what they say about the Queen. Elizabeth is a flesh and blood woman. The Queen is a legal entity, as is the crown. So while Elizabeth, the woman, is a separate entity, and while the Queen, which is a legal fiction, a corporate fiction, a corporation, while those are two totally separate entities, they are also indivisible. Well, that's impossible. Two separate entities, once joined and become inseparable, are now one. They are no longer separate entities. So that's a deception. Okay? So the police, I don't know if the police even get that. I'm not sure if they get it. Like, do they not know that their mama was lied to when they were born? Or are they just, house niggers? I don't know. I'll have to ask the cop next time I see him. Do you get it? Do you get the game here? Okay? You are Bill, the man. You are also Bill, the corporate entity. And the corporate entity can't do anything because it's just a piece of corporate paper. Well, now, while that piece of paper is not you, Bill the man, and you are separate from this corporate entity, somehow they made you indivisible. And they made you liable to pay all the debts. They made you liable that you must follow and adhere to and submit to all of this corporate nonsense called legal that comes through the legislature, which takes away your God-given rights and takes the money out of your pocket constantly, that you two somehow, while separate, are also indivisible. An impossibility, an absolute impossibility. If someone can discuss to me how that's possible, that you can be indivisible and at the same time one. Once you've been joined, you're stuck there. You can't be indivisible. One is they've put you into a state of absolute servitude to the corporation. And servitude is slavery, and slavery is against the law, because no one can hold anyone in servitude without their express consent. Well, obviously nobody expressed any consent to it because they didn't know anything about it. So it's all fraud. And that's how your life is. And that's not your life. That's the life they created for you. They created it through deception, which is fraud, which is against the law. They took you from being born as a future man or woman. And plagiarism, I love that in etymology. Plagiarism is the theft of a child or a slave. So when they copied the name and all capped it, they plagiarized your name. And from the theft of that name, they went and created another entity, another corporate entity, and apparently they gave it a value so that the bankers could use you as collateral. Now, they can't use you as collateral, but they're using that other entity as collateral for government corporate loans, of which you're on the hook for, but you aren't on the hook for it. The corporate entity's on the hook for it, but they somehow went from two separate entities, a flesh and blood man and a corporate fiction, and they say, this is really important. And let's go back to the Queen. Elizabeth is the flesh and blood. The Queen crown is a separate legal entity. The Queen is not a legal entity. Bill or Sam or Susan is not a legal entity. And because they're not a legal entity, the corporation has no power to tell that man or woman what they can and can't do, except for law, not rule of law, but law that states that you will not harm anyone. That's it. So you're not on the hook for any of this stuff. That legal entity, that corporate entity, that all-cap name that they created when they plagiarized your name at your birth, not your birth, but when you were born, have somehow keep saying that they are two separate entities, but indivisible. Once two separate entities become indivisible, they're no longer two separate entities. And that's really important for people to understand. Okay, so, and, but you're saying, well, cop pulled me over and he asked me for my ID. And, of course, it's not my ID. It's created by the corporation because it is their creation. They own that, and they say, well, yeah, but I need to see that. And they said that, and people were saying, well, that's somehow creates joinder. Or if they say, are you so-and-so, are you Bill or Sally Smith? And you say, well, yes, well, then somehow that created joinder. Well, you can't be separate and then be joined and then be separate and then be joined and be separate and then be joined. You're either separate or you're joined. And once you're joined, you are no longer separate. So way back, when you were born and they lied to your mama and they plagiarized your name and turned that into a financial instrument, you were no longer two separate entities. You became one. And that is the slavery. And again, citizen means subject, means servitude, means slavery, and nobody can be held in servitude without their express consent. So you got these cops running around. I don't know that they know, Maybe we should just make up a little tiny brochure or a little information page or something, and every time you see a cop, hand it to them and explain this to them. Because when the cops were here trying to have me labeled as a threat, then the cop finally said, well, you're not a threat. You're pushing buttons. And I said, I'm asking questions. I expect answers. And they apparently don't want that knowledge out to the general public, or they wouldn't have called you people to come and try and intimidate me and have me banned from town hall, supposedly a public place, which of course it's not. It's a corporation, to stop me from speaking at corporate headquarters, exposing the fraud that the corporate headquarters is, and that the nasty stuff that they're implementing, which is designed to harm people. They don't want anybody to hear this. That's why the cops were sent here. But, when the cops said to me, after talking for a little while, the one cop, looking visibly upset, and then he blurted that out, why don't we know this stuff? Why don't I know this stuff? Well, good question. So maybe we can assume, and I don't like the word, but maybe we can assume that the police don't know what's going on. Now, the only way we're going to break this cycle of slavery is to inform people of what the reality is. Once they're informed about it and they come back and bother you again, well, they are liable. Now, I don't want anybody to get hurt. not me, not you, not the police. I don't want anybody to get harmed. I want these sons of bitches to put this scam together harmed. And I don't even want them harmed, so to speak. I want their freedom taken away from them so that they can't harm anyone else. That's what I want. Okay? The people have to deal with the people. But you can't do it in this system. The people cannot accomplish anything in this system because you've been fused with a fraud, which is the plagiarized name, which attaches you to the corporation. And that has to be gotten rid of. The corporation doesn't own the land. The corporation says they own the land on a piece of paper, but they don't own the land. You were given dominion. Okay? You were given dominion. So they are withholding from you what is yours, which is the land, which are the fishes and the animals and the air and everything else. That belongs to you. Each and every man, woman on this planet has the right to the land, to the fishes, to the food. That's just the way it is. But then the corporation, and all roads lead to Rome, we know that. Okay, we know that. This has been going on for a very, very long time. The Catholic Church claims that it is the, I guess, personification of Jesus, because apparently Simon Peter was told to build the church or something, and the guys in Rome said, good idea. So all of these popes and everything are supposedly the successors of Simon Peter, the royalty, if you will. Okay? God's little helpers, the personification of Jesus. This is the Catholic Church. Well, that can't be right. But that's what they said. They write this shit down on paper and say, okay, that's it. That's how we're going to run this deal. And then we got suckered into it. You know, all roads lead to Rome. And we got to sever that. And to me, you know, the easiest way to do it is to get as much knowledge as you possibly can, feel comfortable with the knowledge you have. And once you have the knowledge and you know that this thing is a deception and a fraud, don't get frightened by it. You know, don't get frightened. Oh my God, what'll we do? Well, the answer is quite simple. And that is just to stand up and capitalize that. You know, they capitalize your name, capitalize this, capitalize N, capitalize O. And mean it. So this isn't that difficult to redo. I really don't think so. When enough people just stand up and say, okay, we get it, you defrauded my mother, and I'm not too pleased about that. If you lied to my mother the day I was born or shortly thereafter, if you absolutely came in there knowing that you were there with that piece of paper to deceive my mother, then why would I pay any attention to you people? You're obviously guilty of fraud. So you're lawbreakers. And I can't break the law, because that's against the law. But you guys break the law. You broke the law the day I was born. You lied to my mom. That negates everything else down the line. We don't want a corporate government. We don't want a government from Rome. Okay? We want a government. And I mean, the American, I don't even know, I can't recite the American Constitution. But there's a line in there somewhere, by the people, for the people. And that's exactly correct. And that's what we got to get to. Nothing is going to get positive till we get there. By and for the people. What we live under now is by and for the corporation, by and for Rome. That's what we're living under now. And that's tyranny. Okay? That's what it is. You know, it always has been. Now, I don't know, I mean, I've read enough about, the history of America and that, which is basically the same as the history of Canada, and it was set up as corporations. In the United States, first corporations were the Virginia and Plymouth companies, and in Canada, it was the Hudson's Bay Company. So then they turned around and they turned that into government. And I don't know what they told the American people, but up here we were told that we were given responsible government. Well, these are people responsible, they gave us, are responsible for the running of the corporation, of which we get to vote for. But we don't vote for them. I did this last night. We don't vote for them. We're the proxy for the created legal person. So we register, we go and we take the registered corporate person with us. I'd like to register to vote. Oh, do you have any identification? Yes, I do. Here it is. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So you're a subject and you're in servitude to the corporation. You have the corporate identification and you would like to register that. They don't tell you that. They ask you, would you like to register? They don't tell you what's going on because it's, oh, I see you have your corporate person with you. That's amazing. You brought that with you. And I remember, you do realize that in order to get this, they deceived your mother when you were born, and they plagiarized your name, turned it into a financial instrument. And so you're going to register that. You're going to register the stock created in your name, of which you don't have the benefit of. Okay? We making you the proxy for it. So if you want to buy a house or a car, all these things get registered. So you think you're buying a house or a car, you ain't buying anything. You're paying for it with your labor, but you don't own that. Okay? The all cap corporate identity, the legal person, you register that on their behalf because they can't register anything because they're just a piece of, they're a document. And a document can't write its name. So therefore, it's sitting there in limbo and it can't do anything. It's just this separate entity. And we need another separate entity over here. Oh, I don't know, maybe one that could hold a pencil, of which the legal entity can't hold a pencil. So again, we're back to this two separate entities. Okay, they're saying that this entity over here, the man or woman, does not have the capacity to buy and sell because that man or woman is not attached to the corporation. And only members of the corporation can operate within the corporation. So only corporate entities can buy and sell. But we need a dummy over here somewhere. Where are we going to get that? That would be you, who think you're registering to vote, or you bought a car, or you bought a house. You're the proxy signing on behalf of the corporate entity, the stockholder. Okay, the stockholder. You don't hold the stock, they hold the stock. You are the proxy, because the stockholder doesn't have to go and vote. They can get someone to vote in their place. And in some of the language, it actually calls the proxy an attorney. And an attorney is someone doing business on behalf of someone else. So we got to bust this. And it can't be that difficult to break, because it says they're two separate entities, but indivisible. Well, that means we got to go back to when the fraud took place and say, no disclosure, you deceived, you defrauded, you plagiarized, you broke every freaking rule in the book, and you didn't give any disclosure, and this is a financial contract. Okay? And without disclosure, it's void. So I don't want to play this game anymore. This idea of separate is fine. We need to separate them, and they could not have got to the point. It's physically impossible to take two separate entities, join them, fuse them together, indivisible, and then turn around and still call them separate entities. You can't do it. It's an impossibility. So we got to go back to the original fraud before the other entity was created, because at that point they can't become indivisible because the two entities don't exist. And therefore they cannot fuse you to it. They cannot make you indivisible. You're no longer a proxy. Now you're back to a man. Now we got the next problem, which is that a man can't buy and sell. Only a legal person can. Now, we're not supposed to be buying land in the first place. We were given dominion over the land and the fishes and the animals. This corporation didn't create the land. This corporation didn't create the animals. That didn't create the fishes. But they've taken away your dominion. They've become the dominion. The Dominion of Canada. The Dominion of Canada. And realm means the same thing as dominion. Okay? So it's the realm, all these countries that are under the British rule, supposedly, have all been turned into realms, which is basically the same thing as dominions. They just rebrand this crap. And you're being held in servitude. And they say they own all the land, because somewhere down the road, and it has to go back to Rome, because Rome said that they are basically the personification of Jesus. And they told him, he told Peter or whatever to build a church, of which the Catholic Church is head of. They're the ones that came up with the nonsense of buying and selling. They're the corporation. And we have to nullify that from our minds. And we have to say, no, this is our land. You didn't create it. You usurped it. You stole it. Therefore, you're going against the rule of law. Not the rule of law, but the law. The law stated that we have dominion, not you, not the Catholic Church, not some dick-ass pope, not the banks, not the lawyers. The people. Now, when I look back and I think of conversations I had with the police, you know, when they were trying to nail me as this free man on the land crap, which I've denounced since the get-go, you know, you're against government. Nope. You're against law. Nope. I embrace both government and law. I do not embrace legal because that's a fraud and it's amoral. I do not embrace government because this isn't a government, it's a corporation for the benefit of those who created the corporation, which goes exactly against what they're supposed to be doing, and that's representing your needs. Now, there's another way to look at it, and that is if we were made wards of the state, then the state, and we're still wards of the state to date, then the ward of the state, or the state, who is the ward of all of us, is 100% liable for the cost of our housing, our food, our clothing, our transportation. They are responsible for it. But again, they try to say, no, we're responsible. They control us because we live in their house. And we're still in the child position, and we're wards, and we have to obey by the rules and regulations of the house. Well, if I'm living in the house and I'm still a child, then you are bound to make sure there's food on our tables and make sure that we have a place to live and make sure that we are looked after in a medical position and that we have proper education and yada, yada, yada. But they don't want to do that. They want to hold you in servitude as the child, where you have to obey the parent, which is the corporation, and do the bidding of it. But at the same time, you have to pay for everything. At the same time, they can tell you that you broke the rules, the house rules, therefore you have to pay penance for it, which may be a speeding ticket or a seatbelt infraction or whatever. So they're trying to have it two ways here. That's a duality nonsense. And they're saying, you know, when you get pissed off and you say, well, I'm all grown up now, I'm leaving home. Well, they're saying you can't do that. That's what they're telling you. You're in the house, you got to play by the house rules, and you will never be old enough to leave home because you are always held in the child position and you will obey by the house rules, or you will pay for it. So we just got to push it aside. Push it aside. Now, I'm kind of thinking what we need to do is we need to find a municipality, or better still, just go find a piece of ground nobody's living on, and we'll just go out there and build our own damn town. And we'll put a lay claim to the land, and because it is our land, it is not the corporation's land. As long as you believe the land belongs to the corporation, then it belongs to the corporation. But once you get all of this fraud, then it doesn't stand anymore. It's nullified. Okay, it's nullified. It's the same as all this phony debt out there. There is no debt. It doesn't exist. But they use that to keep beating you down. You know, when you got a politician go and stand up there and says, you know, I have a plan to do something about the debt. Well, the world is in the hole, supposedly. I think the number's around $70 trillion. Okay? And you have these idiots standing up saying, I have a plan to reduce the debt. Now, I don't exactly know what the debt of the United States is. Canada is sitting around $1 trillion. There's only 35 million people here. So if we put in this huge austerity package where we took all of your earnings and gave you, and you didn't spend any money on food or electricity or water or anything, so you just gave all of your money to the government, the corporation, to pay down the corporate debt, it won't ever happen. You're in too far. You're in too far. So they use these austerity measures to freak people out that, oh my God, what are we going to do? Well, we have to have these austerity packages so we can pay off the debt. Well, wait a minute. I thought you said you give us responsible government. How does a responsible government get to be $1 trillion in the frickin' hole? That don't sound too responsible. How does a responsible government create 500 agencies and commissions and boards that are outside the reach of the very responsible government that created them? Well, that doesn't sound responsible either. How can you create a police force that can run around and kick people's doors in and drag them out of their vehicles and jump up and down on them and throw them in solitary confinement and all the rest of this nonsense, or just out and out shoot them? And there's nobody other than the police that can bring these criminals to so-called justice? This is responsible government? Of course it's not responsible government. It's deception. It's fraud. And that's always against the law. But here's the system we live in. And I think what irritates me the most is that when I see really good people, and people I've known for years, are looking more depressed all the time. You know? If you look in their eyes, you can see they know something's bad, wrong. But they can't put their finger on it because they're watching TV and they're reading the newspapers and so on and so forth. Okay? But in their gut, you can see it in their eyes. They know something's desperately wrong. Now, a lot of them, if you just try to bring them into an easy conversation of what is wrong, and you don't have to get too specific about it because most of them really don't know what you're talking about at this point. But even if you try to bring it into an easy, soft sell position, while you can see in their eyes and you can look at by their speech and their behavior, they know there's something wrong. They know they're being beaten into the ground. They know what's happening to their children in the schools is absolutely wrong. But they're afraid. They're afraid. And that's a sure sign of a beaten slave. And that's what's happened. On the upside, a lot of the slaves are standing up and sniffing the air and getting the fact that they are slaves, and they're not too happy about it. Especially considering all governments throughout the world say slavery is against the law, yet you remain a slave. Now that makes the slave pretty powerful because he has that right that it's against the law without express consent to be held in servitude. Well, I know no one. I've never met anyone who expressly consented to living in servitude. So it's like the phony debt that was created by these banksters and lawyers and corporate idiots used to enslave us used to keep us in fear. The number of slaves now, they're standing up and stretching up a little bit, looking around, sniffing the air, like an animal. They can sniff out. An animal, I guess, is smarter than us because an animal has a much more fine-tuned set of senses than we do. I think at one point we had a pretty good sense, but that's been dulled, okay, by all of this propaganda that's been fed to us. But an animal doesn't deal with propaganda. You can't get propaganda into an animal's head. You only get it in our heads. You know, you watch animals. They're sniffing the air all the time. They're sniffing the air for danger. They're sniffing the air for food. They're sniffing. Okay? An animal can tell you quicker than the weatherman what the weather's going to be if you understand how to watch an animal. Okay? They're very tuned to their environment, where we are not. So now we have these slaves that are getting back their senses. And they're looking around. What is this danger that is imposed upon us? Do we flee or do we fight? What is the danger? Is it a danger we can push back, or is it a danger we have to run from? And if we run from the danger, we're going to get pinned up against a wall somewhere, at which point we're going to have to fight. So what do? Do we chase the danger away now? And if you watch animals, they'll do that. You won't see an animal too often allow itself to get pinned up against a wall. Okay? He's going to go and he's going to stand up against whatever's bothering him, or that is in his territory that ought not to be there. And he's going to go over to that intruder and explain to the intruder in no uncertain terms, this is my territory, hit the road. Now, if the intruder decides, well, I'm sizing you up and I think I'm tougher than you and I think I can kick your butt, or at least scare you into submission or backing out of your own territory, let me take it over. Okay, you'll see animals. They'll they make it's almost like a dance. Okay, a lot of bluffing going on. They don't want to fight. The intruder doesn't want to fight, and the one whose territory it is doesn't want to fight. Because if you've ever been in a fight, I don't care if you won the fight or not, you ain't going to come out of there unscathed. Okay? When you get into a scrap, you're both going to get hurt. So neither of the animals really want to get into the scrap, but they want to explain their positions. Now, will you that have the territory now back down and make my life easy? Will you move along, or are you going to stand your ground? Most animals will stand their ground. People, on the other hand, don't get it because they don't have any history and their senses are so dulled. You get some jackass show up at your property, which isn't even real. Okay, that's how stupid this is. You know, are you the property owner? Well, yeah. Well, I'm with the municipality or some government agency, and we've made a new bylaw saying that you have to paint your house purple or whatever. I don't know why I keep saying that. Maybe purple from Rome. I don't know. And you must comply. Well, first of all, who are you to intrude on my property, which isn't possible because the property is a piece of paper, which is an abstract concept. So he can't come on your property. Okay, he can come on the land you're standing on, the terra firma, but neither he nor you own the land. Okay, the corporation owns the land. So he's telling you that you have to do something about your property because they said you have to do it. Well, go get me the property and I'll paint it purple. Okay? And you go, what? Go get me the document that's called property and bring it to me, and I will paint it purple, as you request. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, of course you don't, because you're an idiot. Okay? So what you're saying is you work for the corporation who owns this land, who theoretically then owns everything that's sitting on the land, which would be my house. So you're telling me that the Crown, who owns this land, has told you, their agent, to come and talk to the other agent, the proxy people, that I have to paint at my expense the Crown's property purple. Now, if the Crown wants to paint their property purple, or their land or their buildings purple, then you tell them to come and paint it purple at their expense. Well, I don't think that's the way that's supposed to work. Well, of course not, because you're an idiot, or you wouldn't be standing here in the driveway talking this crap to me. So, it's all about getting knowledge of these doofuses as well. It's all a fraud. We were born into a fraud. Well, we weren't born, we were born and then immediately stolen from our mom and dads and enslaved. So, our mom and dads are basically working as corporate farm animals, if you want to go there, okay? Our parents produced us for the benefit of the state. Okay? Just like, cabin down at the farm for the benefit of the farmer. Okay? And if you've been at this any time at all, you'll know that they've, the idea that these are all farms. These are all corporate farms. And your parents are farm animals. That's why they call you humans. Okay? Human resources. Okay? You're classed as a friggin' animal. You're not classed as a man or a woman. You're classed as an animal. For the benefit of the state, not the benefit of yourselves. So you've had your lives stolen at a very early age. And then they come up with this police thing to keep those who were enslaved with the threat of force. Now, when I was talking to the OPP head office last week, I got into this community stuff with them, and they had this thing called positive tickets. And so I wanted to talk to them about that. I knew what it was, but I thought maybe I could have some fun with them. And, this was the community stuff, the community policing stuff. So I asked them, I never got a positive ticket. I was talking to this lady. I never got a positive ticket. Every ticket I got, I would have to classify as a negative ticket. How do I get a positive ticket? So what they have the police now doing is running around giving little kids what they call positive tickets to further suck the youngsters into believing that the police somehow are beneficial, that they benefit you. Okay, and this goes back to the B Corps, the benefit corps, right? So corporations that benefit the people, which is ass backwards, because without the people, the corporations don't exist. So again, it's ass backwards. Everything's ass backwards. So they coerce these children into trusting the police by giving them positive tickets. And in Ontario here, the positive ticket is issued to the child. It's like the little gold or silver star that the teachers give the child in the schools. So now the police are given these little positive tickets, whatever the child does that the policeman sees and deems to be positive, because everything that police do is up to their discretion. And so I hands this kid a ticket, and then that ticket is redeemable over at the local Max Milk Store, so the kid can come in and get a smoothie or, I don't know, bag of chips or something. And I don't know how good the smoothie is for the kid's health or the bag of chips is good for the kid's health, but this is the kind of shit. Treats. It's just like pedophile ring, right? You know, the cop is playing the role of the guy who used to this, I don't know how many there were, but when we were kids in school, we were told to beware of somebody hanging around the school, probably in a trench coat, offering candy or something to the kids. Well, that's exactly what the police have become. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the kid, because once the kid comes of age, then the positive tickets are going to disappear and the negative tickets are going to appear. Okay? And I don't know what that's going to do to somebody's brain. Well, weren't you the cop that give me the, I got the treat at the store? Well, yeah. Well, why are you picking on me now? Well, you see, we couldn't drag any money out of you before. Now we can. So the game's changed. Okay? So, you know, you're just to comply with what we say. Okay? You trusted us when you were little. Trust us now. Okay? And I really don't want to do this to you, but hey, you broke the law. Which, of course, isn't law. It's corporate policy. And we got to get out of this. You know, I'm looking forward to the day, and it's coming, that one area somewhere, one municipality somewhere, the people stand up and say, no, you're being vacated out of here to the local council. We're cleaning house. We're taking control of both the both accounts, the current account and the CAFRA account. And we, the people, are now going to run this. Well, the municipalities are a creation of the province, just like the towns and that are the creation of the state in the United States. And if the local councils, municipalities don't, or townships or whatever, don't do, because they're in the child position, if they don't do what the House says, the parent, okay, then the state or the province has the authority to come in and vacate that council and replace it with their own corporate people. Okay, and I get this from the municipalities. They say, well, we got to do what we're told to do, because if we don't, then they have the power to vacate us and void us and then bring their own people in here. Well, if you're on council and you're telling me this, then obviously you get the fraud. Okay? You get the fraud, so why are you putting up? Why are you not standing on the highest ground in this municipality, screaming at the top of your lungs to the people about what's going on? I don't get that part, okay? I don't get that part. Because once you understand there's a crime being committed, you have the responsibility to do something about it. Well, who are they going to call? Who's the municipality going to call? They're going to call the cops? They pay the cops. They're the employers of the cops. Well, actually, they work for the Crown. But through the contracts, the municipality, which is the people, so the people are paying the police to harm them. How stupid can we possibly get? And I'm a firm believer we're going to break this. I have no doubt in my mind we're going to break this. And it's it shouldn't be that much longer. And I'm not looking for it to happen tomorrow morning. But it's going to happen, because this cannot possibly continue. Okay? And we got to break it before the UN, which basically has total control now. There's still a few things that aren't accomplished, but the idea is that they've internationalized the police. The police are doing the bidding of the United Nations. The politicians are doing the bidding of the United Nations, which brings us to a global government. Well, if they get us to a global government, which a lot of people say is already in place, and you could look at it that way, but we have to get this done or get this well underway before we get too much farther along, because at that time you will be nailed as a terrorist, and that's what that Bill C-51 up here in Canada is about. That's what all nonsense in the United States is about, is nailing everybody as a threat. And the only threat is, it's not a threat to anybody else except for the corporation. And the police are bound to protect the corporation. Now, what they want to do, which they've done over and over and over and over and over and over since the creation of the United Nations, is use the United Nations forces, who are supposed to be the global peacekeepers, which again is absolutely opposite to what they call it, to go into these countries. Now, I saw some documents where what they're doing in places that they've destroyed on purpose to create migrants and to create problems and show that these problems need to be fixed. And the only way we can fix them is to give total power to the United Nations. But I found some documents for the United Nations once they've destroyed, and I say they destroyed because all of the countries are member states of the UN, and so therefore it is the UN and their member states that destroyed another state, because there's no other states to do it, because they're all attached to the UN. So it is the UN that's destroying these countries. It is the United Nations and their member states who are destroying these other nations. And the rule of and their aim is to destroy all nation states, so they have total control. But what I found was some documents where they're actually, once they've gone in and destroyed, and they've created a whole bunch of refugees out of the country that didn't used to have refugees, then they need someone to look after the refugees. So what they're doing is they're picking out the refugees that they can use, and guess what they're doing? They're turning them into UN law officials. Okay? They're turning those people into blue hats in order to restrain their own people. It's freaking sick. You know, and once they get this nailed a little bit further, make no mistake, you're going to see UN hats in your nations. And they're already doing that, okay? They're already coercing the children in that into becoming universal citizens or global citizens who need global law, who need global police. Okay, so they're already training the kids over here into becoming partners of, and I hate that word. It used to be in the old days when I was a kid, back in the day, you know, howdy, partner. Now it's all about partnering. Okay? Corporations partnering with corporations in order to bring about the complete and total destruction of the nation state. And like I said before, people are starting to really feel it in their gut. You know? So all this pushing and shoving that's going on here is actually, as far as I'm concerned, an extremely positive move. Because they've done this so incrementally for so long, and they've dulled down people's senses of danger for so long, and the people didn't see it. They didn't see the danger. It was like some really sneaky animal is sneaking up on you, and you don't see it, so you can't go meet it head on to explain to it, this is my territory, back off. right? This thing is really crafty. But in their own words, the words of our lieutenant governor who came out of the United Nations, who signed the intro to the local Agenda 21. In a video, she says that she's sick of this incremental movement. It's too slow. Let's get it done. Rockefeller, window of opportunity has already begun to close. That means they got to move now, faster and faster and faster. Well, now all of a sudden, the one coming into your territory isn't as sneaky anymore, isn't as quiet anymore, isn't as visible anymore. And this is what people are starting to see and feel, some with their eyes, some because they did a lot of research, and an awful pile of them, their gut, which is their flee or fight button. So we, the people, are far more powerful than those who have imprisoned us and enslaved us. So we are not powerless, as an awful lot of people have been led to believe. We are the power. The question is, will we use it? Will we use our power? And if we don't use our power soon, okay, the one who's come into our territory, who's coming up to us and say, I want your territory, and you're going, well, he looks bigger and tougher, and I'm a little bit afraid of this thing. Do I want to get in a scrap with this thing, or do I just want to turn tail and leave? Or am I just going to sit here and allow it to push me up against the wall till it gets me cornered? I got some decisions to make. And that's where we are. It's decision time, people. Okay? You've had everything stolen from you. And now they're saying that there'll be no more nation states on the planet. That's your territory. Are you going to let this foreign animal come into your territory and push you out of it? And you can't really go anywhere because there's nowhere left to go, you know? And I've said that as long as I can remember. There's nowhere else to go. We can't go back to 1984 in the book, you know, and that scene up above the little store where Winston and his girlfriend met. And that, I mean, that sticks in my head. Let's just get out of here. And go where, says Winston. Anywhere, says his girlfriend. And Winston looks at her and says, well, everywhere's the same. Okay? Basically saying we're screwed. Well, we're not screwed. We're absolutely not screwed. That's a mental state. Okay? We are the power. And the answer simply has to be no. We ain't going there. Okay? We get it. Our noses are up in the air. We can smell it. Okay? You can't hide from us anymore. Okay? The light's bright now. You can't hide in your little council chambers. You can't hide in your little offices. Okay? You can't continue to screw us because we can smell it finally. Our senses are coming back to us. And there's a hell of a lot more of us than there are of you, and we're not afraid of you. We're not afraid of your paper. We're not afraid of your guns. Okay? We are not afraid. And we're going to push them back. Or we're going to get overrun by them. and then your child or grandchild is screwed forever. Surely you can stand up for that. Because if you can't, you're already dead. So you don't matter. You know, there's so much fear-mongering going out there, it makes me really ill. There's so little positive out there. You know, all I hear, and I don't listen to many radio shows online. I don't listen to as much of anything. I do an awful pile of research and do the best I can to bring the truth forward, to try to bring solutions forward. But, you know, we seem to have a real shortage of positive stuff going on out there, you know. I've got people who keep ragging on nuclear plants. I have people keep ragging constantly on Fukushima. I keep people ragging on Russia. I mean, I see stuff where people are going, Putin for president. What are you, people are retards? Do you not understand that the two wings of the two parties, the two main parties, are attached to the same bird? Do you not understand the superpowers are wings on the same damn bird? Do you not understand the United States and Russia are part of the United Nations? Do you not get that? Okay? You're being played by these people that keep puking out this nonsense, this noise. And that's got to stop somehow. I mean, we got to get through this nonsense. None of it's important. None of it. It's all fear-mongering to keep you either yakking about a particular subject, okay, be it fluoride, be it chemtrails or geoengineering, be it global warming, climate change, be it Republican, Democratic, be it nuclear, be it fracking, be it windmills, be it Fukushima, be any of it. It's all noise. What they've done is they've set up compartments, okay, to confuse and sidetrack people from what the real problem is, and keep them from trying to find the real solution. You know, people are writing petitions and writing to their government agencies and their so-called representatives because they're worried about all of those things that I just mentioned. You know, dear Congressman, dear MP, I'm writing you today to let you know that they're spraying the snot of our skies with chemicals, and that it appears it's hurting the planet and therefore the people on it. Now, I would like you to bring something forward to stop this. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. So why waste your time on that? You know, they're tired of waiting for what they want. Okay? Well, they told you what they're going to do. They're going to move quick now. So we ain't got time to worry about Fukushima. We ain't got time to worry about fluoride. We ain't got time to worry about chemtrails. What we need to do is get this back, and then guess what? Guess what? All of a sudden, we don't have a chemtrail problem. We don't got a climate change problem. We ain't got a fluoride problem. We ain't got a Fukushima problem. We got a nuclear problem. Because now we control the situation. As long as they control the situation, it's just going to get worse. Now, people say, you know, they're trying to kill us. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. Because there's too damn many on the planet and you're hurting it. So they're killing you. You got a problem with that? You got a problem that it went from like 1 in 10,000 to something like 1 in 50 that have disorders after they're born and they've been vaccinated half to death? You got a problem with that? They can't get what they want with intelligent people around. And the next thing that's going to happen to all these children that have been screwed over with vaccines and poisons and every other damn thing, it's going to go right back to before the war, when the eugenics programs are running all over the place, the forced sterilizations and all this kind of stuff. That's where you're headed back to. Is that what you want? Because that's what you're going to get. And you ain't got nothing to complain about. They're trying to kill us. Absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. They're not only trying, it's well underway. Does that scare you? Or does it piss you off? Because if it only scares you, go crawl in a hole somewhere. You're of no use to anybody, including yourself and your family. If it really pisses you off, you better stand up and do something about it. Now that means we got to take these corporate clowns and shove them out of our lands. You know, I keep hearing stuff from the American side. You know, if America falls, America's the last free place on the planet. Well, nice thought. It ain't been free since the get-go. Could be. It could be, and it can be. Canada can be. Australia can be. Britain can be. France, well, I don't know about France. You know, it was actually their constitution of which the Universal Human Rights Doctrine was written from. So I don't know about France. But maybe we could get them eventually. They may be lower down on the list. But there are certain countries that have the capacity, and their slaves seem to be really sniffing the air, the ones I mentioned, maybe less France. Their peoples are really sniffing the air. And so, yeah, we can beat this back. And we're going to have to start jailing these people. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because they ain't going to leave quietly. But that's okay, because if you break the law, which is you harm someone, then you've broken the law, and you must be brought before a jury of your peers to face the news. So it's not like you're a threat. You're not a domestic terrorist. You're a law-abiding man or woman who sees what's going on. And this is a conspiracy to commit mass murder and genocide. But because they call themselves the government, you write them a letter? Would be okay if I asked you not to kill us all? And stop poisoning our water and our food and our air and everything? Could you stop that, please? Ain't gonna happen. Okay? So it's our choice. It's always our choice. I've been saying that forever. Either we stand up and make it sufficiently known that the answer is no, we get it, we ain't putting up with it, and you disassemble this nonsense, you cancel all the debt, which is fraudulent, okay, and we start new. We start with a clean slate. Okay? These are our lands. There is no debt. And our lands have the capacity to look after the people forever. Nobody should be living on the street. Nobody should be hungry. Nobody should be without medical care. You know, that's the moral duty of man. but they have you living in an amoral world. So people can see some homeless person on the street, and most people that walk by want to look the other way, because deep inside they know that could be them, and that fears the hell out of them. So they ignore it. So they don't go to help their fellow man. They ignore their fellow man, hoping that they escape that fate. Well, the game is on that most of you are going to end up there. Is that what you want? I don't believe so. So what's the answer? Accept. The answer really to get this going is accept what's happening to you. And understand what's happening to you and why it's happening to you and the people in your local neighborhood. Why is this going down the toilet the way it is? Can we fix it? How will we fix it? Okay? And sit down and put your plan together. We need neighborhoods, and I ain't going to call them communities, because the word community, the way it's being used today, makes me want to throw up. So I'm going to, if I say community, it was by mistake. Your neighborhood, okay? What has to happen in your neighborhood to change this so that you are now in control of your neighborhood, where you, the people in your neighborhood, own the land that your house is sitting on, not some frickin' corporate fiction. How can a corporate fiction own the land that your house is sitting on? How are you paying a mortgage on a fiction? Where did your creator say you will buy this land? From who? From who? Well, who created the land? Well, according to the government, the corporation, at least up here in Canada, it's the same in the United States and everywhere else. Our preamble says, based on the principle, supremacy of God and rule of law. So the principles, or the moral principles, the supremacy of God, who apparently these people that started the corporation agree have supremacy, gave us dominion over the land. I have never been presented any time I bought a car or land or anything else thinking I was buying land, when in fact I found out later I didn't buy land, which still pisses me off. Where is it that I've signed a contract with God to purchase this place? It's not a requirement. I've been given dominion. Why am I buying a fishing license? I was given dominion over the fishes. And I don't hunt, but if I was a hunter, and if I was hungry, I would become a hunter really quick. Gave man dominion over the animals. In other words, what God said was that I created this for you, and everything that is required for you is there. Only problem is, this sneaky little group turned you into humans, took you out of law, put you into legal, and took everything away from you that was given to you by your Creator. And this is the mess we're living in now. And now your so-called government says there's too many of you. You're the problem. We're not the problem. The guys that poison your water and poison your food and poison your land and poison your skies, we're not the problem. You're the problem. So don't bitch at us about poisoning your food, water, your land, your air and everything, because we're trying to save the planet, because we've determined there's too many of you. And you're using up all the resources on the planet, which is a total impossibility, by the way. But we are the good guys. We're the good guys, the one poisoning you, the one have decided we are going to kill most of you. So we can just let them carry on and accept it, because so far we've been extremely silent. Oh, we're bitching and complaining and everything, we're bitching about all these things they're doing to us, but we're pointing it out, but our actions remain silent. Would say, well, we're doing it. You see we're doing it. You're allowing us to continue to do it. So therefore you're consenting. And you must agree that there's too many of you that have evolved from the great ape called humans. That is the definition of a human being in Wikipedia, backed up by the United Nations language that's in there. So they've taken you from man status to human status. They've taken from a world of law to a world of legal. You've been deceived. Do not be deceived or be treated as slaves, cattle, chattel, which you are. And you have been deceived. But the beauty about deception is once you get it, the deception's gone because you see it. And therefore you are no longer deceived. Therefore you do not consent. And you will not be silent. And we will beat these sons of bitches back. Because we're supposed to. And if we fail to do so, again, we have nobody, and I mean nobody, to blame but ourselves. Look what they did to me. Look what they did to us. Yeah, they told you what they're doing to you. You got a problem with that? If you do have a problem with it, you better get a little vocal about it. And I'm not talking about protest signs and that. They like protest signs. Okay? They like protest signs. They like petitions. Okay? Because they know you ain't even looking at the target. You don't get the target. Okay, so drop down your protest signs. Drop down your petitions. Quit wasting time on that stuff. Get down in your neighborhood. Talk to your people. Explain to your people what's going on. Explain why their gut feels the way it does. And then we need to get to work. This is actually going to be fun. Okay, because for the first time in history, really, we have the opportunity to flip this upside down ship right side up. And you can look at any of these movies, any of these B movies, science fiction movies that have anything to do with futurism and stuff like that, and they spell it right out to you. Okay, they show you your trap. They show the answer to your trap. But people go and say, oh, that was a really weird movie. No, that was them telling you what they're doing. Okay? But you see it as entertainment, not reality. And they tell you exactly in those movies what they're up to. All the movies are propaganda. All the TV shows are propaganda. But you've been dulled down so far, you can't get it. I'm not talking to people listening to this show. Most of the people listening to this show, I have to take my hat off to them. But now we got to get to work. We really got to get to work. Sitting around listening to radio shows all day ain't getting nothing done. Okay? Absolutely nothing. Whether you like my shows or not really doesn't matter. Whether you like the show of the next people who are coming on after me doesn't matter. If you're sitting around listening to radio shows for 10 hours a day, you're accomplishing nothing. Okay? We have got to get some core people together in neighborhoods and get this thing moving. Otherwise, we are going to get exactly what we deserve. And I don't think any of us want that. You know, we have this, man has this weird ability to not see. You know? We are the ones in control if we allow ourselves to be in control. Okay? Too many people think that these people who are in control are highly intelligent, really smart, very knowledgeable people. Well, a good con man knows his deal. And these are con men. Okay? That's the game. They're con men. And I personally have no use for a con man. I've hired tons of people in my lifetime. Then I check the people out. And the one thing I want to know about them is, are you a con man? Because if you're a con man, you're basically amoral. And that you will do and say whatever needs to be done to people to extract what you wish to extract from them. I got no use for that. And that's who's running this show, a bunch of con men. Do you like being conned? Do you enjoy being conned? Does being conned piss you off? If somebody cons you, do you go, oh, geez, you know, this guy came up, he was so good, you know, he was good. You know, he come up and he talked to me for a while and he conned me. He conned me out of most everything I own. But I got to take my hat off. He was good. So I hold no animosity or nothing towards that con man because he was about as good as they get. I appreciate the opportunity to be conned by that particular guy. You don't hear that. You don't hear that from people. When they get conned, they get pissed off. I mean, people go to the corner store and somebody shortchanges them. The till or something didn't kick out the right amount of money, or the girl was shortchanged you 25 cents or $1 or something by mistake, and people go ape shit over that. You get conned out of your complete life, and people go, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the way it is, I guess. Holy crap, people. And you know, this isn't what this show was supposed to be about today. You know? I was planning on keeping today's show pretty light. And I didn't get there. But this is important. This is important. We all know what our local councils are up to. We all know they're involved in criminal activity. You phone up the police and say, I want to report a crime. Well, what's the crime? My local council is involved in duplicity. They're involved in fraud. They're part of a group that is conspiring to commit genocide. They're trying to destroy our nation. And you call up a police station, you say that to them, which is all true, and it is the police that have the discretion or not to investigate something. I'll guarantee you these cops aren't going to say, holy crap, I'm glad you called us. We'll get on that right away. Well, no, because the police are involved in it. So that leaves who? That leaves us. Our choice. I hear music. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope it didn't bum anybody out. Just this way it is. But anyways, thanks for listening. We'll be back here Tuesday night at 7 and again on Thursday night.